To another edition of Ask Michael Eline. This is where I teach people the law in an unorthodox manner by using examples that we see in the news, case law briefs, but it's all about exposing the Leviathan and its instrumentalities and taking back your rights. Know the law and mean to keep it well. Come here to learn from an expert to know your right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Hey, everybody. So I'm back, and I've got a lot of cool things that I want to share with you. The first thing I want to share with you, because I have permission to tell you this, is I was able to get permission to have in-face visits with Chili DeCastro. And so I will give you an update later on today, hopefully with BZ Watchdog. What we're going to do is we're going to go break down the second arrest in Nevada, legalities of that arrest, and talk about some things that Chile wants to do against cruel and unusual punishment, similar to what's going on in Australia, where they basically eliminated sending people to the hole because they found that it didn't have any positive effect, and it was preventing prisoners from being able to prepare for their cases, which is exactly what any great Leviathan would want, I think. Now, this particular episode, by the way, let me check out the sidebar. Hold on one second. What's going on over here? Thank you, James Forbes, for coming. Thank you, Jody Shiloh. Hey, Chevy, how's it going, buddy? All right. So now BZ may come pop in a little bit, but I just want to go through this as quickly as I can because I do have briefs due today. But I've been seeing a lot of misinformation and disinformation in the so-called auditor community or First Amendment community, whatever you want to call it, sovereign citizen or a reasonable facsimile thereof. There seems to be a almost constant urging to cite unpublished cases and depublished cases as if they're mandatory or persuasive authority, and no one's delineated that in their briefs. So I did a video about that, and it was called Sovereign Citizens, Cop Watchers, Soliciting Trespass, and in the Watkins v. Miller case. And so I sort of explained the difference between what a criminal solicitation is and the potential ways that an officer may be able to solicit a trespass, but they're not going to involve a case where he asks a gas station owner, for example, if the gas station owner wants someone to leave. And in Watkins' case in particular, even though it's a depub and it can't be used for anything that would help your case, because there's already cases on point, the Florida law is very clear that police officers, by statute, do have the ability to trespass people on private property. And that is their Florida statute. So each case is going to be different. And that's why you always want to shepherdize your cases. So basically, I pointed out to the community, they call it the community, I just call it people who are trying to exercise their rights, that number one, the propositions for which you say cases stand for usually are not those propositions. And number two, nobody ever tries to break down or brief the case to compare the factual situations. Factual situation is a real problem because if your case involves a totally different set of facts, the outcome or the opinion won't apply to your case anyways. And so I got into a little debate with Merb, which I think is probably a cool guy. He seems like he's either a Mennonite or a Amish dude. So, probably a homesteader, which I totally like and appreciate. But I know there's a lot of blowback. He pointed out that, oh, no, but you can use depublished or unpublished cases for persuasive authority. And, that might be true. And maybe 0.0000001% of the cases, because there's already going to be a published case that's on point. And even if there's not, what you would do is you would take the depub and you would just try to sort of use the arguments in that depub without citing it. Now, typically, the only time that a depub would be used, it's definitely not going to ever be binding authority on a court. So you look like an idiot if you just cite it in a string of citations on your brief, and you could get sanctioned by the court for doing that. There's a way that you would do that, and I can explain that in another video, but you have to be very careful how you do it if you're going to do it at all. And 99% of the time, you'll never do it, and it's just a straw man argument or idea that you'd even want to do that. So I wanted to teach you guys, you need to shepherdize and look up the case law and the research and do the actual comparison between your case. So in this video, I pointed out that the riotous BLM protests were not protected speech. and that for that type of speech, you would need to pull a permit. But as usual, because these guys are not trained in the law, automatically I get attacked by, hold on a minute, this guy. I'm going to try to share this. So I guess this guy's called Double D or something. And I guess he's got some kind of a beef with me. I guess I didn't serve long enough in the Marine Corps to make him think that I'm a Marine or something. Not quite sure, but I guess listen to what he has to say, because I pointed out that, yeah, you do need a permit to protest in these types of violent, riotous situations. And this is his response. Let's see if I got the sound going here.
You fucking need a permit to protest? You guys, this dude, I heard your voice say that you need a permit to protest. Jesus Christ, dude. I can't, anything that you say after that is irrelevant. You have lost all credibility the moment you.
All right. So you kind of get, so you guys kind of get the idea. And look, I can understand that too, because before I was trained or knew anything about the law, apparently like this guy, I used to think the same thing, that you could just pretty much drive around without license plates and have a British West Indies plate, and, you know, getting arrested and getting pulled over and going to court and sometimes winning, sometimes losing. I learned these lessons back before this guy was probably even born. And having become a paralegal and practiced law for almost 20 years, I think I've learned a thing or two. And so what I want to share with you all is, because it sounds like a lot of you are being led to the slaughter by people who really don't know what the hell they're talking about. Now, you absolutely have the right to protest. There's no question about that. The question's going to be how you do it. All right. Now, and I'm going to throw that up on the screen here. Just give me 1 second. So on the michaeleline.com blog, I just posted an article, which I will now share with you. Hopefully you can see it. All right. So I did this article, and it's no, you can't always protest with no permit, 101 for dummies. All right. So you guys can go to michaeleline.com and look at it yourself. But what I want to do is sort of go over it with you, and then I'll go over the compendium, the ACLU article about this. So basically, many First Amendment auditors think that they know the law, but mostly don't. Here I will try and help the ones intelligent enough to listen, understand. And basically, the right to protest is a fundamental human right endorsed by the Constitution. That's why I'm a follower of Locke, because he believed in natural law, and your fundamental unalienable rights come from a creator. They're not granted to you by the government. So that's one thing that is definitely universal in my thinking, and probably agrees with most of the so-called First Amendment auditors. Now, what you have to understand here is that sometimes you don't have an unlimited, unfettered right to protest or engage in First Amendment so-called protected activities. And like I explained in my video, some of those activities would involve blocking the streets, or even blocking a sidewalk. You have the right to stand on a sidewalk and protest without pulling a permit, no doubt. But once you block the sidewalk and don't let people pass, that affects other people's rights. And that's what people need to understand. We're a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy. We were never intended to be a democracy. That's what the Leviathan, that's what the left wants, is a mob rules democracy. People like me, natural law theorists, people who would normally support the Bill of Rights, understand that we are a constitutional republic. And under a Republican form of government, the rights of the individual matter more than anything. And you can't even support or consider understanding minority rights until you understand individual rights. We're all unique. God made us all unique. Okay. So because we understand that, other people in the community matter too. So that's why the courts have interpreted the Constitution and the Bill of Rights based upon English common law to a large degree, the old common law of when you can, basically do things and not do things and still have a civil society, because you want to maintain a civil society. So sometimes the government will require a permit to protest. And most of the time when it's in a big city, there's going to be designated times, dates, and manners in which you can protest, especially like if it's a gay parade and there's going to be children around. And we know these guys like to run around naked with their clothes off, with sex toys hanging off of them. So that kind of stuff, they're going to scrutinize. So that would be a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction, because you don't want to get in trouble with like ludity, public lewdness type situations either. So that's why you elect representatives, hopefully, who will support parents and not this weird movement that's going around where you walk around half naked. So the bottom line is there are going to be times when you have to pull a permit in order to protest. And I know that sounds terrible. And I'm not even saying that I support all of these draconian laws, because as a civil libertarian, I believe less government is more freedom. However, when you are engaged in a protest activity, sometimes it can get out of hand. And that's why some of these laws were written. And hold on, let me make sure here I'm looking good. Okay, just want to make sure I'm not muted. Let me look over in the sidebar. I think it's important to know this information. Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate that, King Braveheart. And it is important because a lot of these guys, you know, they sound like they're like meth addicts or something, telling all these people, oh, no, you can do whatever you want. F these guys, F those guys. And they're all going to jail. And I don't want that. Like, I care about all you guys, even the ones who talk trash on me, because ultimately you're fighting for the greater goal of freedom and First Amendment, hopefully Second Amendment rights, because you can't have the first without the second. And so that's why I wanted to break down some of the scenarios where it would be okay to protest and where it wouldn't, without a permit or some kind of government security or support. So I don't know if a lot of you remember this, but the Ku Klux Klan used to want to protest all over the place. And so because there were so many groups hostile to the Klan in the areas they wanted to protest, and since the city or the county has to basically issue a permit, they can't discriminate against the Klan based on their political or racial beliefs or whatever. So they got to let them protest. But how do you do that? Well, we know there could be a massive riot. People in the city could come along and start shooting at them. So one of the ideas is they want to separate hostile parties from one another. So if there's going to be a really large protest, you want to make sure there is some kind of a law enforcement presence to preserve the peace. But I included this really cool chart down here of when permits are required. So basically, government authorities can impose restrictions on protests by requiring permits. They are typically needed for large public gatherings, to coordinate safety measures and manage potential disruptions. You have the constitutionally protected right to engage in peaceful protests always. Let me see here. What else? You have, and Basil's just joining us, so I blocked him out so we can get squared away. So you have a constitutionally protected right to engage in peaceful protests, particularly in traditional public forums, such as streets, parks, and sidewalks. And that's what I was trying to tell you guys earlier is, yeah, you do have the right to protest without pulling a permit. Of course, that's common sense. But it often crosses the line and becomes a riot or becomes unruly behavior and activity. And once that happens, the police have the right to shut you down like that. And so I just want to go down the list really quick, and then we'll get Basil involved. So the other idea behind permitting is to prevent interference. So if your protest has a permit, the police may need to ensure the private actors are prevented from interfering with the speech. And that was the example I gave where you could potentially argue criminal solicitation of trespass by a cop. So the only way I could foresee it happening is if, let's say, a bunch of protesters are lined up and they're protesting and they have a permit, but one of the cops is a racist bastard and he doesn't want them there. So he tells some convicted felon, here's $20, go and break up that protest. He just solicited an unlawful trespass. And that's the only way I could see that. And then, of course, I want you to look at my other video about solicitation, because many of these auditors and people who don't know the law don't understand the difference between criminal solicitation, which is a crime in and of itself, basically encouraging someone to break the law, and a solicitor like a Mormon dude coming to your front door trying to share, or the Jehovah's Witnesses trying to share the Bible and soliciting their religion. That is not a criminal solicitation. They're not telling someone, hey, go and violate someone's rights. So really quick, let me just get through this. The legal consequences of civil disobedience, such as blocking an intersection or chaining yourself to a building, can definitely lead to arrest. And the arrest can have different implications depending on your circumstances, obviously the jurisdiction, the venue. And then, of course, you need legal resources, guys. You people really need to start trying to understand the law instead of thinking that you know it. Citing bad law, citing depublished cases, or even citing a good case that may have been overruled or overturned or interpreted differently by a subsequent court or an appellate jurisdiction changes everything that you're trying to argue. And if you're mixing in depublished cases with good cases, that's going to be a bullshit brief. It's bunk. The courts are going to laugh at you. Now, the good news for most of you is you can argue Balistreri versus Pacifica Police Department. I believe it's a Ninth Circuit case. And that is a case that says the Court of Appeals has a duty to ensure that pro se litigants do not lose a fair hearing on the merits of their claim due to ignorance of technical or procedural requirements. And that is a good case. You could argue, hey, I screwed up on procedure, but you can't argue that you screwed up on substantive law. So your memorandum of points and authorities, that's substantive law. If you screw up on that, your case is getting tossed. And there are a lot of new lawyers out there who are totally clueless. They don't know what the heck they're doing. I had the benefit of having worked for an appellate justice and also having worked for several lawyers and been a paralegal to learn these things. And just really quick, oh, look at the doggy, cool. I just want to go down and obviously ask questions in the sidebar, because I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, how dare you say that you need a permit like Double D did. But I just want you guys to know, and nothing against Double D, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, I'd like to teach him. I'd like to be able to teach all you guys what I know and then invite debate.
Oh, come on.
But basically, key considerations for the protest are going to be the descriptions in the permit. So the government, they need to know who's going to be protesting and what's going on. Because if you got a bunch of Klansmen, all right, just think about this. You got a bunch of Ku Klux Klan guys are coming to your city to protest. They're not going to be met well, and there's going to have to be somebody there to break it up. So that's another one. I just want you people to understand, like, there's like thousands of years of history going back from ecclesiastical law coming into English common law and then eventually evolving into American common law. And it goes back all the way. We're a common law, English common law originally system. And all this is thousands of years of history of civil behavior and how you should regulate society to avoid the least amount of damage and still have the greatest amount of freedoms. And that's the evolution into American common law. And I tend to agree, some of these permit requirements are unreasonable. Sometimes it's total bunk BS. And that's where you call somebody like me. And I'm not saying to hire me. I only practice law in Texas and California. And I try to focus on military veterans who were in motorcycle accidents and stuff like that. That's sort of my clientele. But for all you other people, try to find a good First Amendment rights lawyer if you feel that your rights are violated. But make sure you set up your case properly. So if you're protesting on the public sidewalk and the police are citing you for blocking public sidewalks, make sure that you have someone there auditing to show that you weren't blocking the sidewalks. It might even make sense to bring a retired police officer there with you who could later testify as a percipient and maybe even as an expert witness at any hearing that you potentially had. But all the cussing and swearing and acting like you know everything, even if you're right, the jury will be poisoned against you because most jurors automatically look at the one using foul language and acting aggressive as the aggressor. And that's how they'll treat your case. Even if they find liability in your favor, they will find you to have been in the wrong and maybe just not give you anything. So let me just really quick, Basil, I'll have you in here 1 second. I just want to go through this.
It's all good, brother. I got the real watchdog sitting here anyways.
Right on. So government officials and protest rights. Well, you definitely have a protected right to peacefully protest in traditional public forums. And that's going to include parks and sidewalks, not necessarily on the streets, guys. It's, it's questionable. At some streets you might be able to, but if you're going to be interfering with traffic and it's going to mess things up, then you're in trouble. You're probably going to get pulled out of there. Now, if you have a permit, then the law enforcement typically will be there to help break up any problems. But at any point, they can issue a clear and present danger dispersal order. And so this is the problem that I'm having with a lot of the guys I've talked to in the First Amendment community. They'll just keep saying, we have the right to do this. And they'll get themselves, like in California, they call it a 148. They'll get themselves cited for resisting, obstructing, delaying an officer in the performance of their duties or whatever your state might call it. But ultimately, you're going to get arrested. And honestly, guys, it's because you don't understand the law. If you got a problem with what they're doing, understand they do have the right to violate you and arrest you. So I would recommend from this point forward is to stop just listening to anything that you read in some First Amendment auditor forum just because they have 1 million followers. That makes them know something.
Hey, Mike, it's kind of like that. You remember those old commercials where the one, I don't remember what it was for, but you had like the the French guy who really wasn't French. He was just like an old like trailer trash, just no job, flip flops, just a tank top, whatever. And the girl's like, "Oh, but he's a French model because I read it on the internet." It's like,
Oh,
and then it
right.
came across like, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet, or don't believe
Yeah,
everything
I've
you see
seen
on the
that.
internet." Yeah, this is pretty much the same thing, guys.
Yeah, I've seen that. And then, of
Everything
course,
you see or read.
and I included also BZ. I included a link in the description as well as my blog post, because my blog post kind of breaks it down for people who aren't lawyers. The ACLU article is pretty good too. I recommend you read both. But basically, it says the same thing that I just said. The First Amendment protects your rights to assemble and express your views. However, the police and government officials are allowed to place narrow restrictions on free speech rights. So make sure you brush up on your rights. That's all I'm trying to tell you guys to do. Calling me names and engaging in ad hominem attacks against me personally, because I'm trying to tell you what the law is based on my understanding, is kind of immature. I don't think it really helps you guys. It's kind of a bad look for you guys, because I'm volunteering a lot of time to help you. I know that Double D says, "Oh, he's had this channel for years, and now he's trying to like tap into what he calls his community." Brother, I've been doing this before you were born. The reason I became a lawyer is because I got beat up by a cop over a parking ticket. You're a boot as far as I'm concerned. I've already been arrested years ago for doing very similar stuff to you, and I didn't have a crew of cameramen. And I'll tell you what, if I was with a crew of my Marine buddies doing this and I flashed a light at a cop, I would own up to that and not let the driver take the fall for that. I don't know, put it in the comments if you guys would own up to something you did and not let your buddy take the fall. Anyways, does anybody have any questions for me?
Man, you always let them take the fall. No, I'm just kidding. You never let them take the fall, man. Come on
Never.
now.
You got to be a brother, man, because that's what we do. That's what
Well,
we do.
and this whole community is supposed to be tight. Here's the thing. We all have our demons. We all have our skeletons in the closet. If your dirty laundry comes out, man, address it. Don't go run and hide and delete all your crap. Don't sit there and talk trash about somebody else when your stuff stinks. We all have laundry. We all have dirty laundry that's going to be aired out eventually. I mean, Mike talks about his arrest. You guys don't hear me talk about my arrest, but I mean, they're minor. You guys, if you guys go look up and see what I've been arrested for, you just laugh and go, "Yeah, that's like nothing." A one nighter, three nighter, whatever. But
Yeah.
like these haters that are out there,
Yeah.
I got people that approached me, and I told Mike this. I think it was last week, where that guy's like, "Well, you lived in Orange County. You got 2 warrants out there. You sure you still ain't got those warrants?" Man, those warrants were taken care of about 20 years ago. They were
Right.
for failure to appears. They were traffic tickets where I didn't show up for court. I left the state. I couldn't go back to Vegas and get my driver, because that's where I'm from, is Vegas too, guys. Get my driver's license transferred over, because they pulled a hold on my license because I didn't take care of those tickets. I had to take care of all 4 tickets. I even wrote all 4 judges. 3 of them reduced the fines so I could actually pay the fines. And then I got my what do you call them? The extracts once I got them paid, to show the DMV so I could get my license back. And I'll tell you right now, guys, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Don't believe everything you hear from people. If you've got a problem or a question about somebody's past or history, okay, either go find the documents yourself or go do your homework, man. Just don't believe all this trash on the internet. This is ridiculous. Now, like Direct D's situation, the man's got outstanding warrants out of Arizona, I believe it is, and whatnot. Guy's convicted felon. Okay, great, fantastic. Nobody knows the actual truth about behind all that stuff. I don't really care. All I care about is, what is he doing out here? Now, is he going to make us look good and do what we're doing, or is he going to make us look bad by doing the crap that he's doing and getting arrested, or letting somebody take the fall for something he did? Just like in that DMA video, my whole thing
Yeah.
is, you strobe a flashlight from the passenger side. How are you letting a driver go to jail? That
Yeah. I mean,
first,
if that's true, that's not something a bro would do. And look, I watched a NorCal Cop Watch video the other day, where some dude starts beating the crap out of the NorCal guy in a library, and he pepper sprays him, and his buddy there who's helping him stands there and films and says, "Stop hitting him, stop!" Like a total dude. Like if that was you and me, like I would be trying to pull a guy off you. I just don't understand. These guys act all tough. Oh, I did time in jail or prison. You know, when that's one of your brothers there, man, you're there and you're a sacrifice to each other. If you're not willing to do that, you're in the wrong business, guys.
If someone's beating the crap out of someone and there's a second person, just come up, put them in a chokehold, let them pass out. That's the easiest way to do it. You don't even got to throw blows. Just, a little quick little sleeper hold and
rear naked, man.
And just, let them lay on the ground and let them come to. By the time they come to, you've got it all on camera. The cops are there, and you don't got to worry about pepper spray.
Yeah.
You don't got people shouting and fighting and causing disorderly conduct in the library.
Yeah.
But that's why I always say, guys, if you're going to go out and cop watch, either live stream it, which somebody that we know just texted me as I was getting ready to come in the chat room, said they just filmed a cop watch down the way from me and did not go live stream. I said, why not? They said, well, I got it on video. Yeah, but you know better.
Yeah.
You're out there by yourself. You're out there by yourself, already out there on bond. You're not supposed to have any contact with law enforcement. Don't take the chance. Live stream it.
Hey,
live stream. Go out in numbers, guys.
Really quick here. I got Arma with Harmony saying, question, at what number of cameras do we need a permit? What are the specifications in order to reach a clearance?
Let me try to answer that question before you come in with a legal perspective, because I know you're going to correct me. As far as I know, it's not about how many cameras, it's about what you're going to do with the cameras. So if it's going to be like for commercial purposes, like a film, TV show, commercial print, or you have to block off the streets or block off the sidewalk and get people's signatures to use their likeness and stuff like that, I believe that's the only time you really need to get a permit. Outside of that, you could have 100 cameras in public, and what are they going to do?
Well, Basil, that was really genius what you just said, because making a movie, a commercial movie, is commercial speech. It's a form of artistic expression. So that was a beautiful thing. That's another example of when you would need a permit. It's a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. The city's getting money because you're using taxpayer-funded areas. So the city gets a little bit of money for that, right?
That's right.
So that was beautiful. And then, yeah, I'd say that was a pretty fair and accurate description as far as cameras go.
I forgot to mention that too, because those people that are being used for commercial are actually being paid by the production company.
Yeah.
Where the people that are in my film, because it's public, they're just free background props.
Yeah, that's journalism. I get it. But I guess what I want the audience to understand is it's not really about the number of cameras. It's really about where you're using them. It's really about the time, place, and manner. The time, place, and manner. And I highly recommend that you people be like a Marine or a Navy SEAL and do your research logistically on the local laws, not just the state laws, but the municipal codes, the local ordinances. Just like a good lawyer, when he goes to court, he's going to learn about the local rules of court too, because sometimes they have their own local rules and they'll blow you out if you don't do it right.
Well, we know no good lawyers show up in Zimmerman's court. But just saying,
well, we're not going to get to that. So I got this other question here. How much longer is Chili staying locked up? And I got another one. How is he? I don't have
at least July 10th, at least until July 10th when we have that appeals hearing.
Yeah. And it could be different, but the other one about how's he doing? Okay. So I finally, and I did announce this at the beginning, but for the people who joined us late, I was finally able to get permission from the Department of Corrections to go and visit Chili face to face, which apparently is very difficult for out-of-state lawyers to do, which I think is a problem. And I'm going to look deeper into it because I think it violates the confidentiality rights of prisoners. I think it chills the speech between attorneys and their clients. So I did go and visit him, spent quite a bit of time, I'd say close to an hour. I think they let me stay pretty much as long as they were really cool about that. So they went up there. I can't really tell you the whole thing, but I go up to where he's at. They put him in a room first. Then I go in there and we're sit down and the guy is just wiped out. He's not able to sleep. There's crazy people that all talking to themselves all the time. So it's not segregated from crazy to normal people to nonviolent to violent. They just put them all in there together. And so one of the things that he wanted me to share with you is from this experience, he wants me to help spearhead a cruel and unusual punishment channel or a reasonable facsimile thereof to prevent this cruel and unusual punishment. For example, in Australia, they don't have this lockup where they throw you in this tiny little box when you do something wrong, and it prevents you from preparing for trial. In Chile's case, they literally pulled him out of solitary and rushed him to the courthouse. So he got out a couple days early, but he's sitting there in the courthouse, totally going through culture shock. He's been deprived of human contact other than some guy talking to himself, walking in circles 24 hours a day for 5 days, not able to sleep. And then they put him into court. How on earth are you? Think about these January 6th guys who are locked in solitary. Put in the comments if you think it's fair that they're just being locked up and they're totally just suffering from shock. How do you really think they're going to be able to fairly prepare their trials? It sounds like what they did to Eddie Gallagher. What do you have to say about that, Basil?
Well, I think that first off, you can't rehabilitate anybody if you got them in isolation. I mean, it's completely cruel. I mean, I can understand if somebody's going to be harmful to themselves or harmful to others to restrain them to solitaire, but for speech, I mean, because somebody live stream, it's not even in the handbook. You're going to stick somebody in a hole for 5 days and make them lose their mind. These guys that are locked up regarding the January 6th thing, I mean, I find it treason. I say just go hang them all. Forget locking them up. Just hang them. It would have, King George would have done that to us back in the day. But,
obviously you're joking around, but I get it.
Well, I don't know, am I? But anyways, I find that as treason for storming the Capitol. But no, to be locked up and in solitary, even for those guys, I mean, yeah, they stormed the Capitol. Not every single one of them was being violent. Not everyone was out to harm anybody. It was, it's just like you got a group of people, okay, and you're sitting here and everybody's angry. It's like the Kenosha riots or whatever, everybody's angry about this happening and that happening. And it takes one person in the crowd to incite violence or to instigate violence. And everybody is like lemmings. They just follow in order. And I think definitely that's what happened on January 6th and any big crowds and riots that you have. I really honestly think it's usually something to that effect. I don't think that these guys that were locked up and, like I said, intended, maybe having a little fun and urinating on Pelosi's laptop and stuff like that. They thought they were having fun, but because it's federal, it holds a lot more punishment and harsher just because it's a federal level. But no, these guys should not be put in solitary. They should be somehow rehabilitated, whether it be an anger management class or
the problem is
the shrink.
But the problem with that case, I don't want to get too far off, but the problem with all the Jan 6 cases, they're just looking at cell phone data and just throwing anyone in jail who was there pretty much. And that's clearly something that King George would have done. So thank you for that. Now, Brick Jones, he's asking, is the 1A absolute? Now, this is kind of a trick question, guys, because, my personal opinion is the First Amendment is absolute. All of our rights are absolute. Here's the difference.
Oh, no, it's supposed to be, but it's not.
No, I think that it is. In form, it is. But when other people infringe on the rights of others, it loses its status as protected speech. So if the BLM rioters, I mean, the guys are marching through the street, pulling people out of their cars. Clearly, if you're blocking the street, they needed to get a permit to do that. They didn't do any of that. So they just impeded with the flow of traffic, beat people up, attacked people, usually because they were like light skinned. That was like the typical people they'd pull out of the cars, and started clobbering people, pulling truckers out of their cars, beating them up. So, by the way, I'm doing another video about, is it legal to run over protesters? We'll talk about that in a couple of days. But the bottom line is, guys,
if you're for your life.
We'll get into it, because even then, if you're in a jurisdiction with like a George Soros prosecutor, even if you're totally in the right, they want to go after you if you engage in self-defense, especially if it's Second Amendment stuff. So they'll still prosecute you, and if it's a DC jury, good luck. If they don't support self-defense rights or anything like that, the DC juries are notorious for putting people away who disagree with their far left politics. So That's why, a lot of the cases against Republicans, they always want to bring them in DC. So, the judges, of course, are all extremely far left too. So give me a bunch of give me a bunch of twos if you think that there's political bias in our judiciary, and give me a bunch of ones.
I see a couple of evil Knievils making a left turn.
Give me a bunch of ones if you think that that judges are unbiased and they're not activists from the bench, especially since Obama. Give me a bunch of ones if you think Obama judges are not activist judges, because that's the big complaint I'm hearing from a lot of First Amendment and Second Amendment rights lawyers, is that these people just rule based on politics and they could care less about the Constitution. They think that the First Amendment hamstrings the government. Think about that. So let me see here. So Jim Forbes, give me an LLL. Oath Keepers got, look, man, that's another one. Guys, I don't recommend that you ever become part of any organized group, because it could be construed by Southern Poverty Law Center or ADL as racist. As soon as it starts getting any kind of gravity or any kind of acceleration, they'll immediately try to say it's racist. Case in point, Oath Keepers. Case in point, Proud Boys, run by a black Cuban guy, and primarily military veterans who were protecting women and children and older people from these Antifa guys who were going around and trying to clobber them and beat them up and hit them with sledgehammers. So these pissed off vets and this black dude who ran Proud Boys was going after them. And they were claiming that Antifa is like the enforcement wing, like the violent enforcement wing of the Democrats. And of course, the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center were saying, oh, they're just a bunch of racists interfering with mostly peaceful protests. So put it in the comments if you think that there's quite a bit of bias and discrimination in falsely classifying people in order to make them appear racist. Now,
do me a favor, guys. Put a 1 in there for me, because I can't type. I'm actually reconning slowly behind these evil Knievel thin blue liners.
Right on. And then I'm just looking at the comments. Sissy men hate the 1-8. Look, I just think that most people who become powerful and become, especially corporations, especially when you're doing business with a communist country like communist China, your rights become less important to them, and they'll sell you out for that contract with the basketball league to do games in China, for example. And now all of a sudden, basketball players can't say anything about the Uyghur genocide, can't say anything bad about China. So I just want you to think about the corporate tentacles, how BlackRock basically controls to a large degree who gets appointed to the bench, the rights that you have, what the school system's putting out there, their attack against parental rights, trying to make children the chattel property of the state. These are all things that I think that we could all come together on as auditors and as people who support the Constitution patriots. And I just don't understand why everybody's attacking each other. The only reason I really got involved heavily lately is because a friend of mine got locked up, and all you people were emailing me and texting me. And I said, screw it, man. I'm just going to go online, maybe try to help him keep his channel alive and keep him alive. Be careful
how you say all you people. Everybody might think you're a racist.
Oh, right. Gosh, yeah. Nowadays, everybody melts like a snowflake.
So sensitive. Free Chili de Castro.
Yeah, it looks like they're more excited about your potential opportunity to do an audit than they are about hearing me.
But is that what the comments are in the
hold on. It says so you're behind some blue line constitutional violators. Be careful.
Yeah, that's true. I'm following a pair of evil Knievels.
That's funny. That is great. So so everybody, just to kind of give you the rundown. Basil is a former recon Marine. I am a former Marine as well, but I blew out my knee during MCT, and then I completed SOI training, but I couldn't graduate with my class because I was on crutches. So they sent me to a medical platoon. But the connection that I have with Basil and why I like to have him on the channel is because we're both Marines and we love the Marine Corps community, and we still have that value system. Like, hey man, get after the task, no excuse. So I love working with people like that.
And to be honest, Chili actually connected us too.
That's right. It because of Chili as well. That was the initial connection. But as soon as I saw BZ and I started talking, let's use Jarhead. So we became friends. A lot of people think I'm crazy. You didn't serve long enough to talk about being in the Corps, but I've been active in the Marine.
We're all crazy.
Yeah, I've been active in the Marines ever since I got out. In fact, I'm going to do a promotional video either tomorrow or the next day. The vice president of the Leathernecks Motorcycle Club, he's a former Navy combat corpsman, and he's also a Navy SEAL. My buddy Howard, and we're going to have him on to promote the Paul E. Line Memorial Ride, which we set up for my father, who died of cancer from Agent Orange. And I'm really encouraging all you guys, if you can make it out to Houston, like the Willis, Texas area. It's going to be May 18th, I believe.
Sorry, I just found out where my Evil Knievels are set up.
Cool. But it's going to be, I think, May 18th, but I'll do a notice. I'd like it if you guys could come. And also, if there's a way you can help us do some fundraising, it's for a good cause. It's to lobby Congress to pass legislation to allow West Coast veterans, not just the ones at Camp Lejeune, but West Coast vets, to also make claims under PACT Act style legislation who suffered from water contamination, like at El Toro, Tustin, Tustin Air Station H, MCAS H Tustin, and El Toro Fixed Wing. All those areas that we had, they're Superfund sites, contaminated water. If you have a family member with 5 or 7 or 8 fingers on one hand and they live in that area, that's probably why. And so I'm trying to get legislation, which I'm drafting myself, to try and open up these veterans and their wives in particular who sacrificed their careers to look after their husbands. And it's for people suffering from PTSD and service-related cancer on the West Coast. So we can all get it, not just the ones back east who lost family members. So the wives can go and sue for wrongful death, for example. So it's a really big deal to me because my dad died from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He did 2 tours in Vietnam, and he was an 0848, and he was my hero, and he's the reason why I became a Marine and why I'm still depressed that I got hurt, and because I really wanted to be a lifer. So it means a lot to me, and I'm traumatized because I didn't get to stay in the Marines. A lot of guys are traumatized because they had to be in the Marines. Anyway, so that just to give you the connection. And then, so here we go. Age go, I should be placed on a government list. I'm an anarchist, so strange, my belief. Well, heck, I mean, most of the college professors are anarchists now. I think you would fit in better than ever. Let me see here. Let's be honest, Cholito. No, he doesn't. Chile doesn't deserve to be locked up. That was a BS arrest. He should have never been arrested. It was stupid. He was never a danger. The whole argument was a logical fallacy. They're trying to say that, well, he was in the danger zone after the cop put himself in the danger zone, after the stop was already over, and Chile clearly presented no threat to the officer. Now, we'll break down arrest number 2 tonight, and I just wanted to tell you guys I cannot share everything about my experience with the visit that I had with Chile, but my goal and intention is to help him with a new project against cruel and unusual punishment, because I'm all about prison reform and abolishing private prisons, by the way. And unless anybody else has anything to say, I'm going to close it out because I got to get back to work.
Well, I'm glad you're closing it out because I'm going to go live stream. I got these 2 traffic cops who are fixing to violate and steal people's money on the side of the road.
So make sure to go to BZ Watchdog's channel, guys, because he's probably going to start going live once he gets off this call with me. So hopefully you can see an arrest, and I'll try to join in too while I'm working, try to keep it going in the background. All right.
These bastards are actually literally hiding behind a sign of a cemetery funeral home, man. They're literally sitting behind the sign. And now I got another truck unit pulling right in front of me.
Uh-oh. What do you think? I agree with, here's the deal. We should definitely ask permission from government before we can do anything. I called the DOJ today to ask what shirt I should wear. More regulation, please. I love this guy. So listen, everybody, I do not support, for the most part, these permitting things, because it's a bunch of, Leviathan supporters, the big government types who issue the permits, and they'll do anything they can to not issue them. So where I would come into play is I would be the guy you would hire to sue the local government or city or state for refusing to issue the permits.
I gotta go.
Yep. Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us, BZ. Make sure to like and subscribe to BZ Watchdog. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. That's what I would do. I would be the guy that would come in after the permit was denied. And most of the time you shouldn't need a permit, but the problem is law enforcement has so much discretion unless you're auditing, you're filming. Like a typical non-permitted type of requirement would be, let's say you're on a public sidewalk, you're filming, you're not blocking anybody, right? But with BLM, they were blocking old white guys saying you have privilege, So you have to walk around us and using all this racist crap against old men and women. And so clearly that would entitle the police to break it up. But unfortunately, that's one time that the police weren't stopping it or breaking anything up. So go figure, there's arbitrary and capricious enforcement of the laws as well, which is something I would examine on review when I sued. And so I just want all of you to be very careful about who you listen to online and who you're getting your advice from. Don't take everything that I say for gospel either. Do your own freaking research. But look, I've got almost 2 decades of legal training. I've done civil rights law. I started out as an appellate lawyer. I worked for an appellate justice. I'm not a dummy. Sometimes I may not be 100% correct, but I'll readily admit it if I've made a mistake. And if you can find something that I'm wrong about, I want you to tell me, because I don't want to live in ignorant bliss. I think that we all need to accept that, especially in law, that it's an art and you practice law. And sometimes you'll find someone who has a better theory than you, who's got a faster steel trap than you, who's just better than you. And rather than fight that, it's better to try to ally yourself and learn what you can from them, especially if they care about the same causes as you. And so with that being said, give me a bunch of ones if you missed Chili, and give me a bunch of ones if you're going to join me tonight for our presentation. We're going to break down the arrest, me and BZ. Hopefully he'll show up. And if Here's the Deal wants to show up too, I'd love it. You can have him on the panel. But we're going to break down arrest number 2. And we're going to talk, because I think arrest number 2, he's going to have a much better opportunity to beat those charges. And I also want to talk about y'all helping me raise some money for him for the second case, because obviously the judge put him out of commission. He's not able to make an income. I know Brian's doing his best to help him with delete laws, but come on. I mean, Chili is delete laws. And without his personality, the brand is suffering greatly. And me being a friend, and again, I've told all of you this, I don't agree with everything this guy does, just like I don't agree with everything Double D does, but there's a lot of things that I see eye to eye with Merb and Double D and these other guys. And I think that we should establish a form of detente, because right now I feel that the Leviathanic community, the deep state, if you want to call it that, they've successfully been able to turn people against each other who should be forming loose alliances. For example, during the Afghanistan war, you had Shia and Sunni Muslims fighting the Russians. So they were, after the war was over, Northern Alliance and the Wahhabis, they went to battle with each other. But the bottom line is, for right now, we're more closely aligned in belief than the other people that are trying to silence us. So that's my thought. And I agree, James. I think Brian's really cool. And I think that he probably would make a better lawyer than me. I'm not afraid to admit that. I don't know if you saw my clip-on tie fall off. Stole that from my son this morning so I could look cool. Put a bunch of ones if you saw my clip-on tie fall off. I thought that was pretty hilarious. All right, so here we go. So here's the deal. We're going to close it out too, buddy. So Here's the Deal says, thanks for doing what you do, asked Michael Eline. Yeah, thank you too, buddy, because, you're really good and you really put it out there and you don't really engage in the ad hominem attacks that these other guys do. I just don't understand it, but I'm hoping that we can all try to form an alliance and help each other for the greater good, because we really need each other more than ever, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe, make sure to save, because you never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. And that's why I say save, like record it and save it to your computer. I don't mean just save it to YouTube, but definitely save and hit that like button always, and share this with your friends and family member, because I'll bet you 99% of the people in the auditor community think that you can just go and openly protest and not risk getting arrested. And I have a better approach. Don't get arrested, but establish a record so we can successfully sue and get you money and force the city to change their policies, procedures, and guidelines. So next time the other guy doesn't suffer, like your offspring or your progeny. My goal is to make this place better for our children. I got 2 kids and I want them to grow up with more freedom, not less. So with that being said, thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Crazy Manuel. Thank you, Greg B. Thank you, Shock Prof. Thank you, James Forbes, Chevy, Christopher. Give me a bunch of ones before I close it out, King Braveheart. And I'm going to be on here, King Braveheart, later today to talk a little bit more about my experience with Chili and the next project. All right. So Semper Fi, do or die. Bye-bye.